Okay, I'm going to show you how to change the labels and the data validation boxes in the questionnaire for the terrorism declaration countries. I'll open the database questionnaire. I'm going to go to a table that has a label in it. Actually, yeah, well, so table 1 doesn't. This is all filling. So I go to table 2. And if we go to one of the boxes, for example, the first here, is there a dedicated pension scheme? We're asking, is there one for contributory age pension? Is there one for disability pension? Is there one for survivor's pension? Now, the people answering the question will be able to answer, in this particular case, yes or no to all 3 types of pensions, as there may be a dedicated scheme of each type, or there may not be a dedicated scheme of one or more types. So we want to know, how do we change the yes or no answers here to whatever other language you may be using or translating. In this case, Russian. I have to admit I don't remember the word for yes in Russian. I think the word for no is niet. I think I know how to spell it, so I will make the change there. So where are these labels? Well, the labels are hidden in a sheet that you do not see down here. To get to that sheet, the sheet is unimaginatively called labels. I'm going to unhide, so that I clicked on any random table, it doesn't matter which one. I right-clicked and got this menu of options. Choosing unhide, it's going to unhide any hidden cells. Notice in this sheet, we actually are in a hidden sheet, sorry, not hidden cells. We have several hidden sheets here, but the only one that's really relevant is labels. The other ones just don't matter. So click labels, click OK, and you'll notice all of a sudden that we now have a sheet down here after table 10 called labels. Now if you look up here, you'll see a bunch of words in English. Now the words in English correspond in the first row to a name for a particular, what amounts to a particular variable or particular reference number or reference. Please do not change the names up here into Russian. There's no need to translate these. These do not appear in the drop-down boxes. What does appear, the words that do appear in the drop-down boxes, are rows 2, 3, 4, 5. There, you will want to translate. So let's go, for example, to that yes-no answer that we had. So we'll start right here. Right, we have yes-no. We also have it over here as yes-no only. Now, you may say, well, why do you have it in different places? Because we weren't really very smart when we made the survey, and we put it in 2 different places. You'll want to translate both, because there are different references in the survey. Some may be to this variable, prompting these labels to appear. Some may refer to this variable, prompting these labels to appear. The computer doesn't know what's in the labels, really. It just makes the labels below yes, no appear, or below yes, no appear. In translating to Russian, we want to change no's to nyets, yeses to whatever the Russian word for it. You get the picture. So I'm going to change these 3 just because they're right in front of me. I would expect that you would go through and change all of these to whatever the appropriate Russian word is. Once I do those changes, it automatically will update. So for example, if I go to table 2 and I click again on is there a dedicated scheme for contributory age pensions, and I open it, you'll notice that I have the options yes and yet. Of course, I didn't change yes to anything, but I did change no. So you'll also notice here the label has changed because it is calling on the same reference point over in labels as so all 3 of those. Now, if you go through to other questions in the survey, on the screen here, you'll find we have some other yes/no questions. A lot of yes/no questions in the survey, right? Is it payable abroad? Okay. Just ignore it's yes/no. Notice that it's changed to yet, changed to yet, and so on. So if you change the labels, all of the drop-down labels in the survey should be converted into your translated language. So far, so good. Relatively easy. Oh, very quickly, we want to make labels hide again because we don't want people filling out the survey to accidentally go to that tab and start messing with that stuff. Because, by the way, if you actually eliminate or delete any of those labels, there will be nothing in the drop-down box. We don't want that. So we're going to right-click on labels, bring up this menu options. Remember, before we unhid, we will hide this time, and the labels box goes away. Okay, so that's the easy part. Labels is the easy part. What do you want to do? Let's go to table 2 here. What are we going to do when we come up to these other words in English that we can't find? For example, in this case, we ask about the basic system organization of the contributory age pension, the invalidity pension, and the survivor's pension. We not only get a drop-down box with some answers that presumably you've just translated into Russian, but we get this other box that pops up with some more words, and these words, if you read them carefully in English, are essentially an elaboration providing a little context for how people should answer in this particular box. We're asked what we want them to know is that by asking basic system organization, we're asking them whether the main public pension is paid for in one of these particular ways. Sometimes the context boxes, right, are repeated. For example, in this case, they're all the same because we're essentially asking the same basic question about 3 different types of pensions. It's the repetition. If you go to a different box, benefit structure, we have another drop-down with some different options here, flat rate and earnings related. But you'll notice here we have a different contextual question. Why do we have a different contextual question? As with basic system organization, some people filling out the survey may read benefit structure and have no idea what we mean. We can give them some options, which will give them a little context, but they still may be uncertain, hence we add a little elaboration. When you're translating into another language, these contextual elaborations also probably need to change because the Russians or the Germans or the Spanish or anyone else using a different language might actually need this sort of contextual information, just like English speakers. Now there is no, this stuff doesn't go away if you don't translate it, if it's impossible to find or whatever, and people filling out the survey in Russian or whatever can read English, perhaps these don't need to be translated. But for thoroughness, I think it would be worth translating all parts of the survey. So I'm going to show you how in the rest of the video to get to these and to change them. The way that you do that is you can click on a box that has one of these contextual elaborators. Go up at the top to data and click on data validation. You click on data validation, you get some options probably. Sometimes the box pops up immediately. In this case, I gotta click yet again. First, we got some settings here. The settings, and this is information that you don't really need to translate, but I'll tell you anyway. The settings tell you here that the variable in the box is a list, and it tells us where to go to find the list to put in that box. That's the drop-down box, right? Notice that the list tells us to go to flat ER. Now, guess what? That is a reference to the first row in the labels sheet, telling it to look in flat ER to find the label options that are part of the drop-down list. That's probably more information than you wanted about Excel, but there it is. It doesn't affect the message that's just popped up in the box. That is in the input message box. Notice that that box has been instructed to show up every time someone selects the cell for benefit structure. Most important for translators, the input message is right here. You'll notice that it corresponds exactly to the box right here. As a translator to Russian, you would want to change that box to words in Russian that say the same thing, hopefully. Click OK, and it should automatically update. I'll give you an example. Go back up to validation. I have no idea how to say our pensions, basically flat rate amounts, etc. in Russian, so I will just type characters. If I type random characters, I'll hit OK, and notice that my box has changed. Now I have to get it back. How do I get it back? We go back to data validation, input message. I don't remember what was there. I'm not worried because I'm going to be able to find it in a different way, which I'll show you in a second. But now I can say, oh crap, because there is no reference, there is no label box or anywhere else to find the information in the input message. If you lose the input message information, it may be gone forever, or you have to look back to another copy of the English version of the survey to find out what was there. So you need to be careful as you're translating this. My advice would be maybe translate into Russian while leaving the English until you're done, and then get rid of the English. Or I suppose you could keep the English all along and just put Russian and the English next to each other. Now, I've changed this box, and if I wanted to repeat the same information in the context box in a different location, I could copy the box here and paste it in another location. Not only does my context box or input message box move as I paste, but everything else about this particular box would move and be pasted over here, meaning this box would become a drop-down box with these particular output options. It would only allow you to put those in. It would also copy the color and all of that other sort of mess. But everything else would be identical. Right? So I'm going to hit paste here just to show you that now I have some random characters correspond to the random characters I put here because I just pasted it. And it is, of course, a drop-down box. If I paste into a box I don't mean to, such as here, I will get the same effect. In fact, I'll go over here and paste in the box. It doesn't really matter. I paste there. I've now just created a box that's a drop-down with those options and a bunch of gobbledygook. Don't really want that, so I'm going to undo it. Maybe? There we go. Okay. Notice this box, which I haven't pasted to yet, has the old English in it. So if I needed to recover the box, what's in the box for these things, I could do that. So I could copy and paste across these three different pension options. I go here, I have different words in the context box. I need to translate those. However, I could, to save a little time perhaps, copy and paste those boxes into those. Whenever you do that, you want to check and make sure that you're in fact copying to a box that has the exact same words in the context here, and that the cell itself has the exact same answer options as the cell that you're copying, or should have the same answer options as the cell you're copying from. And that's how you change those. Now, there are a lot of these context boxes, I have to tell you. While the labeling is automatically changed, the context boxes are not. And sometimes the context boxes are similar in language, but not completely. For example, here we say, uncreatively, please enter the monthly benefit minimum. In the box below here, it looks very similar, except here we're asking for, of course, the maximum. If you copy this cell and put it here, you will be asking for the minimum twice in these words, which will be very confusing to the person filling out the survey, who here is asked for minimum, here is asked for maximum, but then it's given sort of contradictory information. So please be careful in your copying and pasting. If you're worried about pasting into the wrong cell, then don't copy and paste. Just go and wherever you find words, translate them into whatever language you're using. Those are the two things that you need to change that are hidden in the survey. The rest of the survey should all be above board. Everything else you should be visible and should be editable by you to turn into whatever Russian words you want to. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact Gabby or myself about what we mean by particular words if you're trying to find the right Russian or other language translator. And we'll try to provide a little more context and get our thesaurus out to help you. Hope that helps. Hope that's comprehensive in helping. If it's not, and you have more questions about those hidden boxes, just let us know. Thanks.